One thing you said in the talk that really like struck with me was the quote you used. I really like the quote they used from the director of LSE, that in the past the jobs were about muscles, now they're about brains, in the future they'll be about hearts. But you also said that we don't celebrate empathy and kindness and caring, all those like maybe softer things, that interactions with people and so on, like we do with high performance, like, oh, this guy hit this target, so we should celebrate him for that achievement. But we don't celebrate the other stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
why do you think that's the way it is? In the past, that's the way it is. Especially, it might be changing nowadays, but what are the blocks that people have in their perception of that? Why is that not seen as something to be celebrated while the other is? What do you think?
Mm-hmm. I think the world is, of course, embracing it much more with amazing work that Brené Brown is doing. Right, she talks a lot about the power of vulnerability and how, in fact, great leaders are vulnerable leaders. So she's a researcher who researches this, and she already was able to prove in so many ways. But I also like if you are in business, if your business is on the line, and let's say you're losing money and you're not making any profit, this is probably the last thing that you will talk in the formal thing, right? But I also strongly believe that that how you approach those things is actually is a part of that, right? It's actually can be an example of empathy and can be an example of really understanding what's going on. And to me also, if we are operating from this, from the heart, from being able to emphasize with people, we are actually able to see much bigger picture than just seeing okay, this is revenue, we're losing revenue, for example, or we are not innovating fast enough, let's do something. If you are starting to look at it, okay, let me take a pause and let me see from the perspective, okay, where is this person coming from? What are they going through at this point of time in their lives, in their careers? What is the outcome of that, and how can I help? How can I modify the situation? Because at the end of the day, it will benefit exactly your problem. What is also important to note is that overall as organizations, we talk a lot about in organizational intelligence, which is the results, the innovation, the marketing strategies, right? But we very often don't realize that these are the outcome of the health, which is organizational health. And by this, I mean the mission, the values, understanding why does your company exist, how you operate together, who are the key team members and how do you interact with them, where they're coming from as people. So the results of organizational intelligence are actually coming from organizational health. And if you don't cater to those, you actually, to me, you will not reach the highest performance as a business, as a company. And it's not only based on my example in Mind Valley. My example is super small, and it's been 7 years that I actively practice. There are much more experienced and amazing people who talk about it. One of those is actually Jim Collins, who was writing this book about good to great companies, right? He studied them for so many years, and he asked, okay, what makes these companies last for so long? The companies that would start in 19th century, right? They're still existing to that. And he actually saw that they really had a very clear purpose. They really had values that were clearly defined, and everyone was relating to them. They really took care about their people and creating opportunities of growth and retention of those people. This is all about what we say hearts and empathy, and approaching things with less about intelligence and more about the health and the heart.
Yeah. And I think what you said is a point that many people maybe don't consider, is the difference between the organizational success and organizational health. And I never saw the link between the two, but listening to you and looking back at my experience, that is what it's all about. Because if your people are not happy, if your people are upset, or they're stressed, or they're unmotivated, and it's collective, that is going to have an end result on your revenue and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of the times, Do you think do you think that correlation in most businesses or in the world today is clear enough, or do you still think people see it as two separate things? Like, oh, we can be successful without, having our organization, at a good health. What do you think?
I still think like some organizations really don't pay enough attention, or they will make it, or this is like just HR stuff, like it doesn't really make a big difference, because of course it does, like it creates a long lasting change. It's not something that you create and then the next day it brings result for the revenue. Let's say it does create a long term success on the revenue. And like, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that, like revenue and strategy is not important. It's like so important, being able to identify and be very clear and communicate. It's super crucial. And innovation is like innovating, and this time especially, right, is super crucial. But super important before doing that is really to have an amazing team, and to invest in leadership and in team, and how you operate, and be very clear about this, and congruent, of course. And trust me, like even the companies who like maybe like have those that you are not aligned, but the moment you are very clear about it, it's like so much better for employees. So those who are needed, they will stay. Those who won't be relatable to that, they will leave, which is totally fine. So yeah, so I like, coming back to your question, I still think like many companies really like either like trying to say, oh, this is not our role, this is HR's job, or it's too fluffy, or it doesn't bring immediate change, or it's all this like management concepts that you cannot apply into practice. They always like think that way. Some of them think that way. But at the same time, I really think that many businesses as well right now, they like all of us, people and businesses, have been like forced to think about existence and why do we exist, right? And what drives us, and will our business survive? And in fact, those businesses that have the strong reason to survive are coming back strong. Right. So
Yeah.
I think like this, the whole 2020 was a lot for companies to really look at it from another angle, and to start asking themselves these questions.
Yeah, no, I think you said it. I think you said it perfectly about that. Especially this year, it kind of forced everyone to take a look at, their companies and culture and all the things maybe you didn't pay enough attention to before, and now really looking forward, given everything that's happened. How do we start? What's the future of the company look like? How do we want to operate? How do we want to take care of our employees, and so on? And one thing you said in the talk was, you asked the question that if you were in trouble, or if you were going through a difficult time, would your company be there for you? And as you know, with COVID has affected everyone, businesses and individuals. So, and a lot of people have lost their jobs. Now, I believe that if a company truly wanted to show that it cared about its employees, especially during COVID, maybe, I don't know how, I'm not saying I have the solution, but trying to keep everyone on board would be, I think, the biggest sign of loyalty that you could show to your employees. But at the same time, I understand business is business, and for business to operate and continue, sometimes just given financial struggles, it just doesn't work out. So how do you think people should be like now moving forward? How do you, like, with COVID, do you think people have handled it the right way, or was there, but just by letting people go, or do you think there was another way that you could have gone about it? For example, at Mind Valley, I know you told me you guys had to restructure a couple of things, move to online, more to online, and so on. So how did you guys handle it, and what do you think about that whole situation?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very, very good question, Khalid. For Mind Valley, we, of course, like as I mentioned, events department, live events were canceled. Our events department is quite big. So, but at the same time, these are the people who have been with us for 8+ years. Like these are like some of the most solid employees. And of course, we didn't even want to do anything like to get them leading, but we definitely restructured. One way was to create online events. Another way, we upskilled the team. So the team was some of them turned into YouTube marketeers. I was actually speaking last week, and the employee who was doing events before, now she's super good in YouTube marketing on French, which is, wow, it's so amazing. She's so happy. So we were upskilling them, reskilling for what is needed at this time. So we took that stand more, and I think like we were blessed that we had these opportunities, while other companies weren't able to do that, right? Let's look at Airbnb, right? We saw how Airbnb handled it, and I think this the key here is how companies are handling it. The layoffs are for some businesses are inevitable. You have to do it. Same what happened for Airbnb, but how they handled it, how they communicated, it's very admiring. So there is this like a viral article of where their CEOs described exactly what's going to happen to employees who are being asked to resign or retrenched, exactly what are the reasons, what types of support they will get, including like counseling, career and job coaching, creating alumni database of all ex-employees and reaching out to his CEO's friends and helping them to find jobs. And I truly think this is like an example of how companies can support employees in these times. If you have to let somebody go, like the way you communicate and like being very transparent about the reasons is very important. And second, what you will do to help, even like minimum things, and really like showing that you are doing this by action makes a big difference. And already like there is a lot of research about that when employees feel that they were given like valid reasons, and these reasons are clearly, transparently communicated, it already improves the experience of this horrible thing of letting someone go. And second, if they felt supported by providing different options for them after employment. So I think like this was like super good lesson to learn from Airbnb this year, and I think many of the HR people were amazed by it.
Yeah. I didn't consider either of those 2 points. Actually, I love what you guys did, that you know, instead of letting people go, you looked at it in a different way and like, okay, let's upscale people. So I think that works in 2 ways, because number one, people kept their job. Number two, you show loyalty to your employees. And number three, that employee, even though he might be doing an extra job now, he now has a new set of skills that can be transferred like later down the line to whatever they want to do, or whatever that might be. So there's a lot of benefit that comes from that. But like you said, in some situations it is inevitable, unfortunately. You know, businesses need to survive, and sometimes you have to let people go even if you don't want to. But I think how Airbnb did it in your example, communicating it in the right way and showing support to your employees even after, you know, having to let them go, especially in such a difficult time. That's what I think. That's what they're going to remember. They're going to remember that, okay, fine, it's a shame, but everyone's going through this, and at least they supported me. They might have me get a good job, a different job, gave me some counseling, whatever it might be. So having that extra like aspect of empathy or like care to your employees, especially in such a difficult time, I think is a great way to look at it and a great way to go forward.
Yeah.